Hey YouTube, how's it going? We've done reptile videos and now I'm going to kind of switch it up and do a different video. We'll see if you guys like it. It's kind of a little different. We're going to be talking about the nation of Israel and how we've seen them a lot in the news lately. And really, they became a nation back in 1948. Before that, they were scattered by the Romans in 70 AD, so for almost 1900 years. They were basically scattered throughout the earth. And it's interesting because there's 29 verses in the Bible that speak that God says, I'm going to bring them back to their land. And so you've got basically 29 promises that they're going to be back in their land. No other ancient people has ever done that. And so usually if people ever ask me, what's proof that the Bible is really of God? I go straight to the nation of Israel because you can see the physical evidence that the Word and the Bible is the only religious book in the world that tells the future and has it come true with 100% accuracy. And so, it took 1900 years, but the Bible actually teaches that it would take that long, almost 2,000 years. And it also teaches that the Lord would return soon after that. And so we've got some interesting promises. Even a lot of Christians gave up on the idea that they were going to come back to their land, and they believed in a belief called replacement theology. In other words, God was done with Israel and the Jewish people, and any of those prophecies now referred to the church and in heaven instead of Jerusalem. And so you really have to take his word and kind of twist it. And, when God says that he puts his word above his name, and 2 Timothy 2:15 says that we're to study to show ourselves approved, rightly handling, a workman that rightly handles the word of God, if he puts it above his name, it's very important to him. We need to handle it with what it says is what it means. I'd much rather stand before God and say, well, that's what it says, and so that's how I understood it, than to go, well, I just wanted to twist it and make it, make sense to me now, because it just didn't make sense before. The prophecies weren't coming true. And no, let's rightly handle his word. He is the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, and he created everything. Let's see. Where would we start here? Jeremiah 32:37 is where I was going to start with. I'm going to read real quick. It says, Behold, I will gather them, speaking of Israel, out of all the countries where I've driven them in my anger and in my fury and with great wrath. And I will bring them again into the place that I will cause them to dwell safely. They're not dwelling safely yet in Israel, but God cast them out in his wrath, in his fury, he said. But he is a loving God that shows grace and mercy. And so what has he done? He's protected them while they've been out in the world for 2,000 years. Yeah, they've suffered persecution. They've suffered a lot of death and attacks and things like that, and hatred. But he brought them back. And are they safe in their land? No. They've always got skirmishes. They've had 8 wars since they became a nation in 1948. 2 Palestinian intifadadas, something like that, and many skirmishes. They're not at peace. They will be at peace when the Lord returns, and he sets up his eternal kingdom. That's the second part of the verse where he says they'll be at peace. He brought them back, but they're not quite at peace yet. But yet that promise will occur. It will happen. Okay, so he says, I'll bring them back. He did that. 1948. They had 5 nations at war with them while they were becoming a nation. And that was Jordan, Iraq, Syria, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia. They basically smuggled in a couple aircraft from around the world just in time to push these forces back because they were coming at the Jewish people way outnumbered. That in itself, you look at it and you go, that's the hand of God. Or they were just really lucky, right? No, it was the hand of God. And he has preserved them. The 1967 war, the 6-Day War, They basically gained control of Jerusalem, which they also needed to do according to the scriptures. And so here they are. Why are they hated? Why are they persecuted? That's the main topic of this little study. You see in the news, Israel's always in the news. It's one of the smallest nations in the world, yet they're always in the news. There's always something going on with them. Okay, so why? Well, we're going to go to Ephesians real quick. Ephesians, let's see, we're in 6:12. It says that we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. In other words, if the Bible's real, and if God's true and real, then Satan and his demons are real because he says they are. And we don't battle against flesh and blood. We battle against a spiritual battle. In other words, there is a battle out there, God and Satan, God's angels, Satan's demons, fallen angels, and you don't see it, but it's going on all around us, and it influences us in many ways. So, you've got these powers out there influencing leaders in other nations and people to turn against the Jews. Hitler. Try to exterminate the Jews. Okay. And all throughout time. And also when they became a nation. Attack them. Destroy them. They've said, we're going to wipe them off the earth. We're going to cast them into the sea. And it would just take a nuke or two to wipe out the nation of Israel. But that's not going to happen. If any nuclear attacks happen, it's not going to destroy the whole nation. It may be a little part or something, but we don't know for sure. But we know for sure that they are going to be there for eternity. The Jews will not be dispersed out of the land of Israel ever again. They're there to stay, and they're there to live. And they are going to be attacked. They are going to be greatly attacked in the future. We're not studying that right now, though. But that could be another study. I was going to go to Isaiah real quick. I'm getting a little scattered here. But Isaiah says, let's see, Isaiah 11, 11 and 12. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again the second time to recover the remnant of his people. So there's only 2 times he's going to recover them. And this is from the world. He's going to recover them from around the world. So the first time they were scattered, they went to Babylon. They came back. The second time, the Romans dispersed them, and then they came back in 1948. That's it. There's no other prophecies of them getting scattered. They are here to stay. God says, I'll bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. You see, it would be wise to support the nation of Israel because God says it is. He says to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So, okay, another part of the spiritual battle, the other important part is that Satan wants to destroy the Jews. Well, why does he want to pick on the Jews? Just because Jesus was a Jew? Or what? No, the main reason Satan wants to destroy the Jews is because if he can destroy the Jewish people and the land of Israel, get them out of there, at least get them out of the land of Israel, then the Lord cannot return. See, when the Lord returns, Satan is cast into the bottomless pit. He's done. He's sitting there for 1,000 years. And the rest of that's another study. But he doesn't want to lose his kingdom. He's basically called the God of this world in 2 Corinthians 4:4. So he does not want that to happen. So he is always trying, him and his powers, the powers of darkness, the principalities, the fallen angels, they're always working to just destroy the Jewish people and get them out of the land. And if America was where God was going to come back to and protect America, then he would be attacking America. He doesn't care about everybody else. He wants the Jewish people destroyed. And anybody that supports them, so Christians or any other people that support Israel, you're on their sites. They're going to attack you. Especially if you're out there living for Christ. The more you live for Christ, Jesus says you will be persecuted. It's part of it. But don't worry, it's only temporary, and if all they can do is kill you at the worst, and then you have eternity in heaven and wonderful rewards up there. So, let's see. It's hot. I'm out in the reptile room just so I can have peace and quiet. So Satan doesn't want to be cast in the bottomless pit. He doesn't want to lose his kingdom. So we're going to go to Zechariah, the book of Zechariah, Old Testament. Maybe. All right, Zechariah. And here it is. If we're not going to go into the second coming too much, but the second coming of Christ, it says that the Lord shall, actually in that day, the Lord shall defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In other words, there you go. The Jews will be in Jerusalem. They will have control of it. They will be living there. The Lord will defend them. Well, against who? And he, let's see. Verse 9, real quick, of Zechariah 12, it says, "And it shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all nations that come against Jerusalem." Wow, God's going to destroy them? Yeah. So that's the Battle of Armageddon, the famous Armageddon. It's actually yet to occur. It's going to happen. It will happen. And all the nations are going to be part of it, according to the Bible. We're going to look at Zechariah 14, 4. And it says, "And his feet shall stand in that day upon the Mount of Olives, which is before Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives shall cleave," which is be split, from the east to the west. There's gonna be a big valley there. Anyway, let's see. Okay, lost my place. Zechariah 14:2. "For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle, and the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the woman's ravished, and half the city shall go forth into captivity." He's going to bring all nations. And you go, well, how could all nations turn against Israel? Well, we kind of saw that at the UN Assembly recently. It's possible. And it's possible for the U.S. to say we're not going to support Israel. It just depends who our leader is at that time. We've seen that the leaders don't always speak for the people. And so, why the persecution of Israel? The main reason is Satan wants to destroy Israel so that the Lord cannot return and he can continue being the God of this world and the prince of this world, as he's called in the Bible. So, when you watch the news and you see different things happening against Israel and you're going to continue it, just know that Satan is behind it and he wants them destroyed. That's the main reason. God's wrath is against the Jewish people for rejecting Christ, but he's not out to destroy them right now. He's out to bring them back to their land and eventually give them safety. And eventually, through the persecution, they will turn to the Lord. But it will take some time for that, and it's all in prophecy when that's going to happen. So I hope you enjoyed the study. Thanks.